Hello all, it's Cav and welcome back for another weekly recap of the BUSR Winter Championship, taking on drivers around the world in ACC, iRacing, F123 and Dirt Rally 2.0. First up on week 3 of the BUSR Winter Championship was the GT3 series held on Assetto Corsa Competizione. It was Durham's Ben Gilroy on pole in the wet and slippery conditions here at Zolder, alongside championship leader James White. As the lights went out, there was immediate action as Gilroy and White banged doors and they tiptoed into the first corner. This opened the door for Anna Foster, the leading alumni driver, to claim second place in the early stages. Sam Knight was a man on a mission in the early stages, putting in a bold move to the inside of Cam Gold entering turn 1, although Gold would retaliate on the exit, repassing his fellow Lamborghini driver and create a race-long duel for the Supreme Hurricane Evo 2. Another race-long battle would be between the two Ferraris of Durham's Josh Lodge and the alumni driver Marley Watts of Newcastle, who spent the whole race nose to tail, with the two swapping places constantly until the very end. As the laps ticked by, the pit stops came in, and amongst the pit activity, an unseen incident between the championship leader James White and yet to stop Ed Haskell put the UE student driver out of the race and, more importantly, saw him relinquish the championship lead. After 75 minutes of racing, it would be a dominant display from Ben Gilroy, who stormed to a comfortable victory overall and in the student class. Anna Foster would claim the alumni win, with Marley Watts just fending off Josh Lodge for that final podium spot. This week's iRacing event took our drivers to Japan and the Tsukuba circuit to the FF1600s. Qualifying would be dominated by the alumni drivers, with Peter Stather taking pole and Cam Gold lining up next to him in second. Next it was Coke and Marley Watts on row 2, and the student drivers did Ashton Kantsev and Ed Haskell rounding out the grid, with Ed being unable to set a time during the session. The first race would start with Gold taking the lead following a great takeoff, with Stather losing places in the opening laps. Watts would take the lead from Gold and pull away as contact was made behind. Things would go south for Gold as he locked up the rears into the first corner, and an unsafe rejoin led to Haskell colliding with him. The pair would then be hit again by Ashton Kantsev as they rolled across the track. There would be more incidents, but it wouldn't stop Marley Watts taking the win of the race, with Coke in P2 and Stather taking P3. The feature race would have a chaotic start, with drivers locking up seemingly on every single corner, but with contact being avoided, and the top 3 would run off with their own battle for first. Coke would pull a lead, but Watts would start closing in, and the battle would end short when Watts spanned on the rear of Coke. Stather would be next to close on Coke with a few laps remaining, but Coke would hold on to the win, with Stather taking P2 and Watts rounding out the podium in P3. Next week the drivers go to Rudskogen in Norway, back in the GR86s. This week in F1 our competitors headed to the Hungaroring, just outside of Budapest. Qualifying saw Joe take provisional pole early on, but towards the end of the session, Matty set a blistering fast lap in the 114s, which no one else came close to matching. Joe managed to set P2 by the skin of his teeth as Daston and Geek were all within half a tenth of each other. The first lap started cleanly, with Matty getting a great launch and taking the lead into turn 1, but behind him Joe and Daston were side by side for the first series of corners while Cameron Searle got the better of Geek. Going into sector 2, Matty disconnected, which saw him tumbling down the order as the AI took control. After the first lap, the grid settled into a river with a few people fighting for position and Matty slowly carving his way through the field in the hunt for the lead train of cars. The pit window started to open, the track got a bit more exciting on lap 16 when there was a battle for the lead of the race, which resulted in Daston and Cameron both overtaking Joe, who opted to pit on the same lap. The race took an interesting turn on lap 23 when a safety car came out after GMT UFC retired from the race, which saw most of the grid box for new tyres. The top 5 all boxed for mediums except for Joe, who opted for the softs. This was later turned out to be a terrible decision as Cameron Searle took the lead of the race by lap 31 just before a second safety car came out as SJ the YG retired from the race. The safety car coming on lap 33 for 2 racing laps, it was all to play for at the podium position. Joe and Daston had a heated battle for the second podium position, going side by side through sector 1. On the final lap of the race, Joe and Daston went wheel to wheel through sector 1 once again. The slide tap would see both cars have a moment and Matty make a move for that final podium position. This however resulted in Joe receiving a 5-second time penalty. Across the line, Cameron Searle came to claim victory for the second time in a row, followed by Matty with that excellent recovery drive and Daston rounding out the podium on lap 1 with excellent pace throughout the race after the Joe's penalty was applied. Our rally competitors headed to the Forest of Wales and the famous Sweet Lamb Haffron test for one final British event in Dirt Rally 2.0. This week they'd be handling Group A cars. Famous foul Colin McRae tore through the forest in 1995 in a Super Impreza on the way to becoming the youngest world champion in WRC history. In our Halloween week, it was a Ghost that ran off with the top trophy. Some say the legacy of Group A still haunts these forests, but in an actual Subaru legacy, Penelope Dobbins delivered a consistently strong result to take a runners-up spot. She capitalised on mistakes made by her rivals in the wet and the dark to take the oldest car in class to yet another class and overall podium. Elsewhere, it was calamity abound for her rivals. Asher V, Penny's closest challenger in the alumni class, got unstuck in stage 6 and lost nearly a minute. Likewise, Matty Mumu found the early start of stage 5 particularly tricky. Tasha was able to capitalise on this, but did not have the same pace to compete with Penny, despite being behind the wheel of the newer Impreza. In fact, despite a ghost running off with the trophy, it was a winner for the first 2 rounds and would return as Penny's closest challenger. Doomskull was fast out of the blocks, but a mistake on stage 3 would wipe out any advantage the students class leader had and put him behind the leading alumni driver. But he was to nibble away at that advantage, second by second and stage by stage, until he took the lead with a commanding performance in the penultimate test under the cover of darkness. When day broke for the power stage, it was another fastest time and another clean sweep for the Exeter driver, who has managed 3 overall and student queen sweeps on the bounce, and sets up an excellent title run to win back the championship in the final edition of the Dirt Rally Championship. Next week the drivers will head down under to the Wanga Coast test in front-wheel drive F2 kit cars in New Zealand. That concludes this week's events. If you're interested in competing with us and you're a university student, then head over to our Discord server at busr.gg/discord to sign up. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again next time.